Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Under Construction. It's ladies and gentlemen, not ladies and gentlemen. I need to get much better at making my speech a little bit more intelligible. People have a difficult time understanding me, and even I do sometimes. The words sort of come out of my mouth all slurred together and whatever. It's like I'm permanently on drugs. But anyway, before we get to talking about drugs some more, it's on my list of things today. It's actually not. Let me turn this down a notch for myself. I'm not sure if it's too loud for you. I really can't tell until it all comes together. But anyway, we're here at the site of the future lake that I forgot if I had a name for or not. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But we're here at the site of the future lake, and how high is this terrain? I'm forgetting already. Going senile. 128. Okay. And the terrain over here is what? Less than 128, I would think. 113. Okay, that's right. It's 113. And so this actually makes it up here. We have a what? 1 or 2% grade right here for a relatively short section. Not a very short section, but a relatively short section. Relatively short S-curve. Anyway, we're going to try and make these two things meet. I don't think we're going to be able to do it totally. Whoops. But but we should be able to get close. I really just want to build stuff over here. Anyway, I should point out the fact that, yeah, last time the game crashed, we lost our progress right here. And I didn't fix it because I didn't feel like it. But I did build slightly more of this hill, and also I've done lots of automation. So let's look at something real quick. The session now starts at 5 in the morning, and we have a couple of trains over here, including this one, which is a long-distance local train, I think. It's train 101. Yep. It's a very early morning train. There's train 207 that's still here. They're going to be out of order now. These train 21 or train 1 should actually be over on this track, but I'll deal with that later. Of course, these lead out here. I've been adding more track marks, more signals. Been experimenting with a couple of things. You'll notice as I fly by the turntable here that there are a bunch of things that are on the turntable now. Turntable's over here. And it's an ongoing process for me to try to get this to work. Why is my mic so low? Ongoing process for me to try to get this to work. Oh wait, no, they're not there. Why are they not there? Why are they not there? Maybe they just haven't loaded. I'll wager that's the case. Because the engines aren't in there either. Yeah, we don't have switch stands. Okay, yeah, we got a bunch of signals, track marks, and stuff. Trying to automate this turntable, trying to get the engines that are in the roundhouse to come out and go on the turntable. The one straight across is fine. The one right here can't do it. It has trouble fitting on the turntable, which I moved the Jeep that was in here to this position. I put the consolidation over here, because I just straight up, I can't do it with the consolidation. It doesn't fit. It does fit if you manually drive it on, but when the turntable is cocked in one direction, it means the end of track is right there, and trains that are AI driven instinctively stay very far away from the end of track. So unless I can figure out a way to coax the engine to come closer to the end of track, I'm going to have a lot of trouble with getting trains to go where I want them to go. Or, well, in roundhouses particularly. I'm going to have trouble getting trains out of roundhouses. Getting them in is fine. Can't get them out. So, yeah, we need to think about that. I will be brainstorming. I'll continue to brainstorm as well. But it's the kind of thing where it's like, okay, well, you know, is there really a solution here? Because trains is designed to prevent AI from doing that, and it's not a turntable with a point that I can connect, like, invisible track to or something, because that would make my life so much easier for a number of reasons, not just the fact that I'd have more track to play with. And so, yeah, that's what the issue really ends up being. It ends up being a question of, can I get the train to come farther onto the turntable? And if the answer is yes, how? And the really important thing is that if the answer is yes, then I can do much more with automated turntables, and if the answer is no, then I can't do as much. without changing out the turntables and consequently, the roundhouses, which are the things that are really in short supply here. You can have a turntable with 1,000 positions, and it'll do everything you need it to do, but the issue is that there are only a paltry sum of roundhouses on the DLS that are really any good, and so I really need to be careful with that. I don't want to be reusing the same couple, but from here on out, I'm probably going to have to be much more careful about using roundhouses, just for the simple sake that we don't have many of them. And I should be choosing ones either with no turntable, or with a turntable that has stubs all the way around, pretty much. So that I can use regular methods of getting the trains onto the turntable and not trying to coax them to the end of the track. If you guys know a way to get an engine to come right up to the end of track, please say something, because I'll gladly test it. I was ripping my hair out for about 2 hours last night, trying to figure that out. That's where all my spare time goes, for the record. That's just where it goes. Also, this is a different song, I think. I normally tune into the quote unquote internet radio here, just like, oh, okay, are you ready to hear the same songs again? Because I am. I pretty much expect the same dozen songs or so that we're gonna hear throughout the night or day or whatever, throughout the 2 hours that I have to be recording this, and that I make it sound like such a chore. It's not really a chore. It's just time consuming. I would be working on the route anyway, but this makes me work on the route. And when I say I'd be working on the route anyway, I mean I'd be working on the automation part. That's the part that's really gripped me right now. The rest of it, I don't know. This stuff, it's a means to an end. It's a means to getting the route done. Anyway. Come on now. Yeah, I really need to get some better hardware, but I need the money for that. And I'm going to be strapped for cash for quite some time because student loans and all that. Like, I'm going to do my best, but I'm not Superman, and I don't have unlimited pockets of cash. Like, I don't have unlimited cash reserves. The stuff that I'm making from work right now is mostly being saved up either for a couple of big events or, more importantly, to pay off aforementioned student loans. If you're looking to go to engineering school and you're not sure if you're going to make it through, or you're not sure if it's the right thing for you, you can always look into trades. STEM is not the only fields that exist, contrary to popular belief. And I'm not saying go get an art degree, no offense to people with art degrees, but if you're trying to make money, like serious money, and you don't feel like you have the talent for arts and musics, and you don't feel like you have the, I don't know what the hell you'd call it. I don't want to say the intelligence, because it implies that people in the trades are unintelligent, and that really isn't the case. But you don't have you just don't think you're going to deal with that schooling well. And, for whatever reason, maybe you aren't that smart, but maybe you aren't that quick. Maybe you aren't that, maybe you're not a good studier. I know I'm not. Maybe you don't test well when you're under pressure like that. And there could be a million reasons why you don't think that going to college is a good idea. And some of it is almost definitely the money. There are professions out there where you pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to enter into a field that may not be the kind of thing where you can thrive. Maybe you're just not well adapted to the work, but maybe it's a field with too many people in it. And that happens a lot. And that happens in engineering to an extent. Less so in transpo, because there aren't many of us. But, different, certain kinds of engineers are totally swamped. And I wish I could name some, but it's like, yeah, the field is full. Not totally full, of course. If you think you're good at it, go for it, because you will probably find a job. It's the kind of thing where, at least that's a sector that's almost always expanding. And if it isn't expanding here, it's expanding somewhere. If you don't mind going wherever, overseas or whatever, adjusting to a new culture, which is, not necessarily a bad thing at all. It can be an eye-opening experience, but, for some people it may not be right. But I'm trying to say that if you have an engineering degree, or really if you have any sort of formal training in anything in particular, anything that is really it's difficult to do, or people don't want to do it, or whatever, you are going to be prime target for the job market. So, sometimes fields are unique because there isn't a job market for them. Like you don't see some such person every day. Probably something very oddly specific. I can't think of anything right now. That doesn't mean that there aren't examples. I'm just not sitting down to think of, that. There are some fields that there aren't a lot of people working in them because there simply aren't a lot of jobs there. But there are plenty of fields where there aren't a lot of people working in them simply because there's some sort of negative stigma associated with them. Or because there is something negative about them that people don't like to deal with. That's why garbage men make plenty of money. It's the kind of thing where society would not function without them, but yet nobody wants to be handling garbage all day. If you can deal with that, then you can do that and you can make good money doing it. And there's a similar thing that goes on with a handful of other professions, usually ones with really high turnover. Usually ones where the job is particularly stressful, be that EMTs, which do need training, or pretty much every job needs some kind of training, but on-the-job training versus off-the-job training. EMTs, that sort of thing. The kind of job where you see a lot of stuff that you may not want to see all the time. I always hear about, and this is kind of morbid to get into, I guess. Morbid may not be the right word, but messed up is the right word, I guess. They're like the FBI guys who end up going through hard drives to look for child porn and stuff like that. And that's, a high turnover position with mandatory counseling, because you see some stuff. It's not the kind of thing where I'd want to go into work and have to deal with that. Or anything, or not necessarily just that, but the kind of thing where you're going through somebody's hard drive and finding horrific crap. That's the easiest thing to jump to because it's pretty much the most universally oh god, and it's a pretty hard-hitting thing. But I'm sure going through the hard drives of serial killers, that sort of thing, can be just as shaking if, depending on what the person was doing and what they were saving and, whatever. But let's get off this topic, because I want to talk about the more interesting jobs that have a really high turnover rate, and not the ones that are the police dispatcher, or the suicide hotline, where you hear somebody call up and you just hear a bang or whatever. Because I've read about that. This is all stuff that, again. It's the kind of thing you can take with a grain of salt. I don't want to dramatize it or romanticize it, either or. Because I really have no experience with any of this stuff. I've never been an FBI guy. I've never done the dispatch or done the suicide hotline or whatever. I've never done that. I've read the stories on Reddit and it's bad enough. Being that far removed from it. And it comes up a lot because people on Reddit will talk about, on Ask Reddit or whatever, what's the most horrific job you've ever had, or, police dispatchers or suicide hotline operators of Reddit. What's the worst thing you've seen or heard or whatever? Not seen on the suicide hotline. It's funny. All the movies from the 50s through the 80s expected us to have, even the 90s, expected us to all have this sort of universal telecom thing where we could see each other all the time. And they assumed that would be the choice that everyone would go to. Now it's just I hope my camera's blocked so that nobody can see me. Particularly the FBI, but the FBI's got better things to do, aforementioned better things to do, than watch me with my dick out. Anyway, let's fill in this lake here. Also, I have a couple comments. That's a good thing. I like having those. This lake has a flat bottom, which is not necessarily accurate or right, but we're gonna do it for now. Let's turn that sensitivity way up. So, yeah. Now, if you really want to look on the light side of this, because I talked about garbage men, those are usually my go-to. And that's not a trade school thing, which I could talk about as well, like welders, heavy equipment operators, that sort of stuff. That is always in demand, like unbelievable demand, because there's a stigma against the trades right now. You know, it sort of bounces a lot, but I feel like right now, and this is going to be maybe a little political, but, and I know, put your tinfoil hat on, guys. But no, there's a stigma against the trades from a lot of well-educated people and people that want to sort of get rich quick, almost. You know, it's sort of the American dream that you can do something and you'll end up coming out with a ton of money. Like, you're always one step away from millionaire or billionaire. You know, just depending on how you look at it. And that's, you know, everyone's, I mean, and that's not the most untrue thing, but it's the kind of thing where, you know, no, at the end of the day, not everyone is going to be a millionaire. At the end of the day, we're going to have plenty of people still in, you know, the lower classes. We could at least try to get everyone to the middle class. And in doing that, or, you know, to do that, it's going to require a lot of encouragement on the part of, you know, not just on the part of the government providing programs where people can be educated, but on the part of people providing, you know, positive support for those kinds of things. And that's really the issue right now, I think. There's a lot of stuff right now where people are wondering where the low-skill jobs are, and the answer to that question is the robots have them. You know, there aren't the manufacturing plants that we know of now are not the manufacturing plants of the 50s, and it's unfortunate because it's, you know, the loss of a huge amount of jobs, but at the same time, the cost to own things has never been lower. You know, basic supplies and stuff like that, you know, having a DVD player or having a laptop or having a, you know, a cell phone even, if we were still dealing with manual labor, it would be incredible amounts of money for that kind of thing, especially with that many small components. The fact of the matter is, unless you're paying somebody a tiny, tiny amount of money, you are not going to break even competing with the modern prices that go with modern robotics and modern automation technology. And so that means you can't just walk into wherever and get a job anymore, which is unfortunate, like I've said. But it also means that, you know, consequently, it means that you're going to want an education. And people have watched this, you know, this sort of low-skill job manufacturing thing sort of disappear, and wondering where it went. You know, people turn to retail or the service industry or whatever, but there aren't, you know, as many jobs in those areas, and they aren't as lucrative, mostly because they rely on other people spending money, like other individuals. But, anyway, my point is, then there are the other jobs. Oh crap! The other jobs, the other kind of jobs, the trades jobs, the plumbers, the electricians, the welders, the heavy equipment operators. You know, these kinds of things. You know, people expect to be able to get that, you know, that cheap and dirty job, the quick and dirty. You know, you go in, you drop your resume or whatever, you just say, hey, I want a job, and you get one. That unfortunately doesn't happen anymore. So people have turned to, you know, the STEM fields as a thing, because that's, you know, in the past been the go-to if you really wanted to make good money. Now it sort of feels like the only option, but it isn't. You know, and so it feels like you're either trapped between get screwed with lower income jobs in retail or whatever, or try to find another low skill, you know, a rare low skill manufacturing job, or a rare just low skill you know, labor job or something like that. You know, the kind of stuff that's very quickly being outmoded. And, you know, so people then turn to STEM, and STEM, while being a pretty big field, the reason it was, you know, sort of an elite thing, I guess it's not the right word, but, you know, the reason it was, not everyone is in STEM is because STEM is not an easy field. You know, it's not an easy set of fields to be in necessarily. It usually takes a hell of a lot of studying. You know, I feel like I got into one of the easier ones, so I cheated. But you know, there are things that are really hard and also really competitive, like computer science, and to go on the really hard front for me at least, bio. Anything with the word biology in it, I can't do. You know, I don't think it's heebie-jeebies, hocus-pocus magic. Like, I understand that there are basic processes that go on. Like, I understand that biology is a thing. But if you put me down with a biology textbook, I wouldn't learn a single goddamn thing. Because I can't do it. It's not... Like, I can't get that many layers removed from just math. Because right now I do basically physics sometimes. And that's it. Which physics is like one step above math. It's applied math. If you look at the XKCD thing, I think. It's applied math, and then if you look further, you have like, frickin' something else. God damn, I forget. You know, you have chemistry, which is applied physics. You know, you have things that we know of, these reactions that are explained by things in physics, but otherwise, you know, it's its own thing. Just like the things in physics are explained by mathematics. And then you have biology, which is applied chemistry. Like, you see the equations, the formulas, the reactions is the word I'm looking for. And then it's like, okay, now apply that within a system where stuff is happening, and then where a lot of stuff is happening, where you're moving around energy, so you've got more physics in there, but it's really just the physics part of chemistry, and chemistry is, you know, chemistry is being applied to, you know, to explain how all these things happen within the human body, or within other bodies, or within plants, or whatever. It's like, oh my god, we're so far removed from the numbers that I can actually associate with. I can't do it. Every time I heard one of my friends in college being like, oh, you know, I'm a biomed or whatever, I hear the word bio and I just go, like, good luck. Just don't, you know, don't kill yourself. I know it's hard. And sometimes I meant that literally, sometimes I didn't. The first part, not the second part, I guess. Well, the second part was, wait. I guess you could say it was literal. It was difficult as in hard, not like hard as in... Never mind. Anyway. Yeah, biology. Can't do it. Not doing it. Not my shtick. I'll do something else. Thank you very much. Give me a slide rule any day. I can handle it. Alright, we gotta get to the other side of this lake. Or we gotta build the other side of this lake, I should say. Now, the question is, do I, like, build what looks like it could be a line up this way? Do I build a branch line right here? No. The answer is no, I don't do that. But I am going to open this up a little bit. We've got a bowl here. I need to raise this. I may have blocked that off by accident. Either way, should be raising this here. Hopefully the game doesn't crash on us. I really just want to, like, I know the track is not getting connected today, but I want to see it happen. I want to see it happen in the not-so-distant future. The other thing is, I really need to make these mountains a little bit more menacing. Because this is supposed to be, like, this is the... You're heading straight into mountains this way, you really are. So I should probably make these mountains taller, maybe even steeper. But they're going to be covered in trees anyway, so it doesn't necessarily matter how steep that mountain is. And it is far away, so it seems like it's more intimidating, I guess. Okay. Alright, I still need to care about doing base height and stuff like that, because I'm not going to be just building this all from here. We sort of have to cross a divide right now, so that means stuff's going to get probably kind of high and we're going to have a decently long tunnel. Also, where was our last... This was our last thing, so that means Okay, so we have this here, and then that's the distance to this siding. And then from there, the distance... So we have our Y here, and then the next siding, the next double track's over here. Okay, so that actually works. That actually makes it a decent distance. I will probably add a short siding up by the Y, but not something that's good enough to let some hefty, hefty longer trains pass one another. Maybe a very short train could pass. All right, let's check out the comments though. I do have a couple, not many, but a couple. Okay. RBMN Productions says, Ellis, the name for the river heading out of Mason's Landing, the Nosum River. So this guy? Is that Mason backwards? Yes, it is. No. It took me that long. Okay. So to preface this comment only exists because Chris and I had a very short conversation about what to name the river, and he said Nosum, and I was like, put it in a comment. I didn't really think about it. God damn it, Chris. It just clicked. It just clicked in my head as I looked at that comment. It's like the Nosum River. Why does that sound strange? And Chris, you're probably laughing like, oh, you didn't notice. Now you notice. Shut up. Okay. So this goes there. Let's turn back on gradients. Why is that so small? Alright, we have a lake now. We need to put some stuff on either side of it. Particularly hills on this side. So really I just need to care about the front because the back is going to be taken care of by a base height. But honestly, I shouldn't get that high back here, and I should probably start to build it off this way, as in like there's an edge to the mountains over here. Nosum River. If anybody has a better idea for what to call that river, let me know, or that bay, or that inlet, or whatever you want to call it. Let me know, and that'll probably take precedence, because I'm not calling it the Nosum River. I thought it sounded cool. You almost had me. You almost had me. I was gonna even go and name it. Anyway, TBA says a couple of things. He says, that is a mess of a staging yard, and I love it because it works. I know, I did not set out to make something beautiful. In fact, I set out to make something that looked sort of ridiculous and messy and weird, because it was like, yeah, it's going to be a staging yard, we're just going to put all the trains here. It's going to be something you don't really see from the main map. It's just going to be, okay, I need to lay a whole bunch of trains down. What I probably could have done if I wanted to go even weirder with it was build, basically shelves of tracks. But I'm trying to keep everything more or less on one level, and maybe I'll do some scenery there in the not-so-distant future. Sort of like model railroad-esque scenery. Or, like half-completed model railroad-esque scenery. For the longest time, and it's still really like this, in a not insignificant way, the staging yard on the Providence Northern has these buildings that are just sort of there. Like, it's staging, it doesn't need scenery, but it has some scenery, which are really just half buildings that are glued against the back wall. So it looks like there's a cityscape, sort of. Like, there are no illusions that are coming out of that. There's nothing really special that goes with it, but... You know what? Maybe I should put a little industry over here. Oh, you know what I'll put here? I'll put an ice house up here. Oh, that'd be great. That's something that I can do. Easy peasy. Let's see. Oh, but if I go into this tile, I'm too close to the edge. Damn it. Damn it, I want to use the whole length of this lake. Screw it. We're adding a tile. Because my life needs to be harder. I need more work. More work, job man. Alright, so grab this height. Okay, so what was the other thing? Yeah. So it's not fooling anyone, but it's a staging yard with some random buildings. So the other thing, the context that I think has to go with this is the fact that we have way too many buildings. We moved the Providence Northern about, it must have been maybe 14 years ago or so. Maybe 10 years ago, I don't know. More than a decade, I would think. 10 or 12 years, maximum 14. The Providence Northern Model Railroad Club moved from its previous location on Hathaway Street in an old mill building to the location that we have now, which is in the old Warwick Grange. And the building we have is arguably much nicer. I've talked about the old building before, and it was really big. We had a huge area of a former mill building, which was otherwise pretty much unused, to ourselves. And it only really had 3 problems, which was that it was hot in the summer, like way too hot in the summer, because it was the top floor of the mill building. It was cold in the winter because there wasn't really any insulation in the walls, and it was wet when it rained because the roof leaked. So it was not the ideal situation to have a club of any kind, much less a model railroad, but we dealt with it because it was a huge space, and at the beginning it was relatively inexpensive. So, and when I say we, I really mean they. I wasn't a member of the club at this point. In fact, I was like 10 years old. So, when I say we, I really mean they. But, you know, they had this layout, and the rent started going up. You know, they often distributed to the guy that owned the building thinking, well, they can't move this. Like, coming up and looking at the gigantic layout and saying, oh, they can't move this. And just sort of crank up the rent because what if you get to lose? They're not going anywhere, so you might as well make some more money off of them. Eventually, the PN got fed up with it, and in a weekend tore the entire layout down and moved. Moved to the old Warwick Grange, which they didn't get to set up for a little while because there was a fire in the building, they had to get the roof replaced, yada yada yada. But anyway, in the meantime, or not in the meantime, but the result of this was, and the reason this is relevant, the fact that the old Warwick Grange is a much smaller building than the old Hathaway Street building. Because the Grange is just a Grange, it's a meeting house. It's not, you know, it's not a mill building, it's in fact, you know, it's not small by any standards, it's in fact pretty decent size, but it's smaller. And so we were left with a whole ton of buildings that were great on the previous layout, but did not fit, literally didn't fit on the current layout. Not like they didn't belong, but like there was not enough room. So, I'm sure that the reason that we have buildings and staging is the fact that there's effectively no room anywhere for those buildings, and they just wanted to put them somewhere. You know, they didn't want to leave an area without scenery, which now even it does have a little bit of scenery. It started to sprout trees and grass as we've sort of left it alone. I think it's a kind of mold, but they're saying it's grass. I'm kidding. People are putting down grass and trees and stuff. But we're, you know, that area is actively being worked on. It's getting nicer. The fact of the matter is, I'm not sure why it has those buildings. And in fact, it represents about 6 different locations. You have a railroad that loops back on itself, a model railroad that loops back on itself. You really start to question where that middle location is. You know, say you're always traveling north. Unless you are building a belt line, in which case, then it's fine that it loops back on itself. But, you know, say you're always traveling north, then, you know, you pass through Providence, you pass through Framingham, you pass through, like, whatever the next town up is, whatever, you know, St. Johnsbury, Vermont, St. Johnsbury, Vermont, over the summit, and then out to Montreal. Except now you're back in Providence. And how did that happen if you're only going north? So, the staging yard, which I'm not sure how many roads do this, I'm not sure how many clubs have a layout where you go all the way around. I haven't experienced all that many. I've had 2 clubs that I've been a member of, the Providence Northern and the NEB&W, and the NEB&W has a point-to-point layout, and the Providence Northern has a loop. So, I've kind of seen both, but I don't know what the ratio is of one to the other. It seems like having a point-to-point is a lot more common than you might think, mostly because a loop sort of involves a space investment that can be a pain. To get it to actually loop back on itself, it can be kind of difficult. So, I like the circular layouts, the loop layouts more because it gives you more running ability, but it does have that weird wormhole property. And so, the fact that and staging yard on the Providence Northern is divided into two areas. It's divided into upper staging and lower staging. Upper staging acts as 4 towns, I think, and lower staging acts as 2. So, the rationale is that each of the 2, because it's double track main line, each of the 2 lines coming in goes to a different quote-unquote location, even though they're right next to one another, and each of the 2 lines coming in the other direction goes to a different location, even though it's the same spot. And lower staging, each of the lines coming in, one from each direction, goes to a different location. For example, if you come off of the branch line into lower staging, you're in Brownsville, Maine. If you come out of Providence down the ramp and into lower staging, you're in Newport, I think. No. Oh wait, that's right, it acts as more than that because the reverse loop ties in. So, yeah, no, that's right. You can't go to Newport that way, so it acts as Warwick, maybe? I know one of these locations acts as Maybrook, which would be a connection with the New Haven to go over the Poughkeepsie Bridge. Relevant plug. But yeah, that's that. It's weird. If anybody ever wants to come visit, be sure to hit me up. I have a thing I can get us in. So I'd be more than happy to show you around, and maybe I'll even buy you a club car if you're good. You can go home with a Providence Northern labeled boxcar, or hopper, or whatever. Anyway, that's a limited time offer. If you call now, we'll double your offer. That's 2 Providence Northern boxcars, one labeled 1994, one labeled 2014 for the 20th anniversary of the Providence Northern, and a case of flex tape. Okay, so we have that area. Wow, that actually went together really quick. That's impressive how quickly we put that hill together. We're getting good at this, huh? I like how it sort of looks like you can just go this way. And you probably could, but it probably doesn't take you where you need to go. And in fact, I will lay a branch line in that direction. And I'm not sure if ice is a commodity that we can use. Alright, and TBA says, wow, infinite power on the NCS stream? Wow. Sure. And then Ryan the Steam Man, Ryan the Steam guy, says, I remember hearing She's Some Kind of Wonderful from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. I didn't actually know that song was in that game. Is it still there? Because didn't that just get a whole bunch of music removed? It was pretty good and probably the only song I've heard from Grand Funk Railroad. I'm pretty sure it's well regarded as like one of their best, if not their best song overall. I ended up listening to Time Machine again on the way home. I wasn't planning to do that. I was singing Some Kind of Wonderful when I got off the train, like loudly in the parking garage with all the other commuters around me, but I have no shame, so it's okay. And yeah, no, that was my Grand Funk sort of day, so it's fun that it gets mentioned in the comments, because I just, you know, they're I love Grand Funk. I love them probably more than they deserve, because they made some weird songs and stuff, but I've probably talked about how they're one of the bands where I've sort of thought too hard about what a music video for them would look like, and it usually is centered around the sort of weird Canadian inverto bath thing, because I feel like that would be at the head of their touring train, pretty much without a doubt. And they would have a touring train. That's the other thing that I think is without a doubt. They should have had a touring train, because they're the Grand Funk Railroad. How do you not at that point? You know, and I'm thinking about it, and it's like, how much does a rock band make? And I don't think, you know, not as much as previously, but rockers are generally depicted as having this crazy celebrity lifestyle where they've got basically buckets of money, just train loads of money. Shit by rail. And so, you know, would it have been that difficult for Grand Funk Railroad in their prime to have a steam locomotive? I don't know. I don't know. That's my headcanon. Whoops! My headcanon is that they had a steam locomotive. That doesn't make any sense. Headcanon doesn't work in real life because we have a pretty good idea of how things happen, especially, like, in the last 40 years. We have a pretty good, like stuff is recorded and written down and whatever, and we like, know the language, and there are still people around from that era 40 years ago. So, generally, you can't just make stuff up about what happened. But, you know, that doesn't stop some people. And that doesn't stop me from creating headcanon. Alright, so we're going to continue working on this. I sort of wish I had more music to choose from. I wish I didn't have to worry about just blatantly using somebody else's music, but hey, that's life. Guess what, kids? You can't steal intellectual property. You wouldn't download a car anyway. Alright. Or at least you shouldn't. You can, but you shouldn't. You can get in trouble for that. Or, at the very least, get your video demonetized. And that's not fun. Not that I'm living off this income. It's like a penny in my pocket every couple of days or so. But I still like it to be able to do that. It's like a surprise check. Sometimes I've had that check come through when I've really needed it. So that was, you know, back when I was in college, I was in a tight spot, and it was like, oh my God, I have another $100. It just got deposited into my account. It's amazing. It's a miracle. So, yeah. Actually, I'm not sure if that's even happening anymore because of... No, that was more recent, I would assume. Anyway. Okay, so we're still going this way. We've got permission to go all the way up to here before we have to not have track. And we're not trying to go up anymore. So I think I'm going to start trying to go down. But the thing is, I still need to fill in this area. So I still need to fill it in with mountains and stuff. So it's going to be our golden spike, I'm telling you. There are going to be more momentous ones in the future of this route, I have little doubt. But this is a pretty good one. This is a pretty big one. Because it's pretty much the largest... It's one of the largest undertakings I've ever done. It's definitely the largest undertaking I've ever done by myself. It's orders of magnitude larger than the Geiger Mountains ever was. And I'm not sure if it's bigger than the TV and IRR, but it could definitely give it a run for its money. Which I should have that CDP around here somewhere, so if we really wanted to find out, I'm sure we could find out. Alright, go this way. Which means... Okay. When am I going to stop calling it 0.2? That's the question right now. Oh crap, what did I just build this off of? My new base height back here? Something else? Oh. When am I going to stop calling it 0.2? When are we going to move to 0.3? And I am not totally sure yet. 0.3 would presumably be when all of the scenery is done in the area that I need to build. So basically all of the tiles that I have now plus a couple. Yeah. No, I don't know. I also still need to build the ship line. That's something that won't take that much time. That's something that I'll maybe wait until we have more area to build so that I can build more tiles. So... Okay. We've just got to fill this area and we've got to be a little bit patient. We've got to work on this. Anyway. yeah. I feel like this will occur to me much later, like long after the video is done, but I'll realize that I never ever finished like talking about a point that I was trying to make, and I don't know, I can't remember where I was, but I will remember later, and I'll be annoyed at myself, but I can't remember now where I was then, episodes ago or whatever, and so it's like, okay, well, now what? I can't just continue talking about that thing if I don't remember where I was or what I was really talking about. So, I don't know. Be excellent to each other. That's the basis of most of my things, I would think. I don't want people to get upset at one another for things. We need unity at this point in time. And I don't want to feel like the great dictator over here. For those of you that are familiar with Charlie Chaplin's speech there, where where he basically he's decrying dictators and the people that harness the power of the people and use it to their own ends, etc., etc. And the in the end, the speech ends with everyone cheering for him and this horrified look on his face where he realizes he's become exactly what he didn't like. Alright, he's become this person that's united all these people to a common goal that could cause bloodshed or whatever. He's put the energy in all these people to go out and do something. And while that's a good thing in a general sense, have people motivated. Having people motivated to hate or having people motivated to destroy is not good. At the same time, when you want to live in or create a tolerant society, you must limit the ends to which you tolerate intolerance itself. And it seems kind of ridiculous or hypocritical or, counterintuitive that then you're going to go after somebody for their beliefs when your whole shtick is to be tolerant of all beliefs. But if you cannot be tolerant of all beliefs, you don't belong in a place that's tolerant of all beliefs, I would think. And that's a very simplified version of it, but it's sort of the idea of, what was it? I want to attribute the quote to Abraham Lincoln, but I don't know that it was Abraham Lincoln. I don't want to go attributing the quote to the wrong place. And it's that, if there is, or injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. That actually might have been Martin Luther King. On second thought. Final answer. But, Abe Lincoln was, of course, scoring 7 years ago. Blah, blah, blah. If you're a racist, I will beat you with the North, or whatever. That's basically Abe Lincoln. I just got it down to a T. I just need to grow out. I need to get the top hat. That's actually, I've got the facial hair. I'm good enough. I'm good enough with the facial hair front. I can be Abe Lincoln, right? Honest Abe. Maybe. Anyway. I don't think I'd look so good in a top hat. At least not one that tall. I'm not all that tall. How tall was Abraham Lincoln? That's my question now. I recall understanding that he was like an impressive dude. Like, he was tall. And he beat up all those vampires. Zombies, too. Like, dude was awesome. Like, nothing stopped Abe Lincoln. Natural nor supernatural. Also, you think the vampires were racist? Were they racist? I never watched that movie. Or the documentary, sorry. Because, I'd assume not, because he just went after them himself, right? Anyway. Enough with the historical discussion. You can have your own beliefs about whatever. I certainly won't take offense to them unless they, directly conflict with reality. Like if you were to talk to me about how the Earth is round, no, don't even start with that, because we all know that it's a government cover-up, and the truth is out there. You just need to find it. You know, I have some very reputable people that talk to me about this stuff. And also, if we're going to talk about the government here, I heard they're putting chemicals in the water that turn the frogs gay. Am I going to get thrown off YouTube now? Am I not allowed to mention that? That's it. Speaking of which, so to be topical, apparently Alex Jones just got booted off YouTube, which is kind of surprising that it lasted this long, and, you know, that he's gone on for as long as he did. Now, I don't necessarily take a stance on what YouTube did, because you don't want a platform with censorship, but at the same time, you don't necessarily want a platform where everyone can say whatever they want. And I'm all for free speech, but this is not free speech in the eyes of the government, it's free speech in the eyes of a private company, so they had every right to do what they did. I'm just not totally sure if I agree with it. You know, at the same time, it's difficult to support Alex Jones. But, you know, sure. That said, it's not like he's been shut out of the internet. He's just, you can still go to his website, you can still, you know, get his media through other sources. It's not like he's been totally silenced or censored. YouTube is just like, we don't want you on our platform, which one has to recall that YouTube is really beholden to the people that make it money, and the people that make it money are the advertisers. You know, first the advertisers, second the people that watch the advertisements. And you would be surprised that that's the order, but really it is, because you could have people paying for advertisements that not a lot of people are going to see, but if you've got not enough people advertising, or, you know, if you've got, how was I trying to phrase that? Basically, the dollars come directly from the advertisers, so that's where your priorities lie. And it's unfortunate that that means the viewers play second fiddle to the almighty dollar, but when you're running something as large as YouTube, you kind of need a lot of those. So, generally if the advertisers start getting pissy about something, which they can, because they don't necessarily, you know, they wouldn't necessarily want their product advertised alongside something racist, or, you know, a myriad of other things. Admittedly, I don't know all that much about Alex Jones, but I haven't heard a whole lot of great things. You know, I don't know, I like to try and see both sides of an issue. I really do. And this thing, like, I've usually sort of disregarded him. I've gotten the laughs out of him that I can. And I've even, you know, I've seen, like, that when he reports on something, you know, when he says something, there can be a grain of truth in it. He's not usually just making stuff up. He may be embellishing a lot. He may be embellishing 90% of it, like, the government's putting a chemical in the water to turn the frogs gay, or that turns the frogs gay. Not to turn, I don't think he was supposing that they did it on purpose. Maybe he was. But, you know, something was happening with a fertilizer, I think it was, that was making frogs or tadpoles hermaphroditic. So, it wasn't turning them gay, it was making them change, you know, their physical sex, and then bang each other. But it's, you know, I could understand where that might get misconstrued, and I can understand, well, you can link pretty much anything that people do back to some government policy, because it's the government, it's pretty big. It has a hand in pretty much everything, which is kind of just what the government does. And I know that isn't necessarily something that everybody wants. There are definitely areas where the government could do to lay off a little bit. There are definitely areas that the government could do to not. And those are both opinions. You know, you may say that, but that's, you know, I don't think what I said is particularly controversial. You may think that I think the government needs a bigger hand in everything, in every part of our lives. Or I think the government needs a lesser hand in literally everything. I think they should touch, you know, nothing as much as they do now. And those are both valid opinions. I just feel like going with the absolute there might lead you into trouble, because there will probably be edge cases where you will agree or disagree with your own views. Which is why I'm usually a probably kind of guy and not a, hey, I think that this absolute thing. Remember, something sits absolutes. Well, the real reason I don't like absolutes is because I can never be totally sure about everything, or anything really, and I just used one there. But, the fact of the matter is, if we're looking at, a situation like this where it's like, okay, what really should the government have a hand in? What should they be doing? What should they be regulating? What should they be controlling? Whatever. There's almost always going to be at least something that somebody says, no, I think the government should be working on that in particular. This thing, because they're the only people with the resources to do it. And an easy one would probably be the military, because I wouldn't necessarily trust a private military, or especially like a for-profit or a for-hire military, to do as good of a job as volunteers in the service of their country, organized by said country to protect its own butt. And own interests, I guess, as well, because that's also what they've been doing. Now, that doesn't mean that having the military in the hands of the government means that the military will make perfect decisions all the time, or that the government will make perfect decisions with the military all the time. But it means that generally you're putting two things that have the same goals in mind, which is protection of the country, together in one basket. And there aren't too many things, I think, that really are as widespread, far-reaching, and enormously, and so consequential. So, yeah, that's my one thing where it's like, well, if you think they shouldn't have a hand in anything, how about this? Now, I could go on the other side and talk a little bit about trade right now. We're in the middle of a bit of a trade war. We'll see where this goes. I feel like there's a lot of implementation of things here, implementation of tariffs that aren't particularly smart, and I think that aside from making general trade agreements, which are, usually better for everyone, asterisk, and it's a macroeconomic thing. Your town might feel some negative effects of globalization, and that can make things rough. That's where all of our manufacturing went. It isn't because we made the trade agreements necessarily, but it's a result of the greater globalization of the world than in the 1950s. And in the 1950s, of course, us coming off of World War II being one of the only economic powerhouses that survived pretty much unscathed, transitioning our wartime economy, which is just absolutely gargantuan, to a peacetime economy pretty much the same size. All the men coming back from the war and going to work in the factories where they were guaranteed a good job pretty much for life and a pension and all this kind of stuff, which really is not the reality anymore, because the world, as it's built itself back up from the ruins of the rubble in World War II, especially past the Cold War now, and into an era of unprecedented peace, even though there are conflicts here and there, the world is doing better than ever when it comes to manufacturing things. Plus, what I talked about with the robotics earlier. The robotics, I tell you, it's the damn robots. It's a different world we're living in than the one that, sort of our forefathers were born into. And it really shows in multiple ways. There are I was going along on a globalization thing. But anyway, I think, so here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. There's capitalism and socialism, and those are two pretty disparate, the two major philosophies on what do you do with an economic system. And despite popular belief, socialism is not a system of government. It just happens to be paired with dictators a lot of the time. And that doesn't... Now, there's a couple of things to mention there. I'm not going to stand in defense of socialist dictators, past or present. I think that there were, that many of the things that were done under the name of socialism or communism were, absolute atrocities, terrible, and are usually the result of socialism putting the keys to power in the hands of very few people, which are inevitably beholden to basically nobody. And that's because socialism is a top-down system. It doesn't balance itself out. It requires people on the inside to be working it to make it run right. And because it requires those people in the inside doing that, it means you end up with a bunch of individuals, a bunch of humans, mind you, in power, in unprecedented power over effectively an entire country. And, they're able to do pretty much whatever they want with it. And, socialism, I believe, sort of as a rule, doesn't really permit capitalism to exist within it. So it's not like you can go out and do what you want. You're sort of, you're under the thumb of these dictators telling you what to do. And were we to live in a perfect world with perfect automation where nobody had to work a day in their life and we could all just live on the spoils of robots, then I think socialism would be it would be great. It would be fantastic because it would mean that everyone was provided for, everyone was cared for, everyone was fed. Everyone had, everyone was able to enjoy their free time, their life, and not have to worry about working for the man every night and day just to keep their head above water and to stay alive. And I think that's important. I think that's a lot of people's sort of beef with capitalism is the fact that you have to do work. And obviously that sounds atrocious and ridiculous. How dare I work for my life? And I can understand why. It's very much the portrayal of people sort of leeching off of a system, of a socialist system where nobody's doing anything. People are living off the dole. People don't have the desire to succeed or the desire to do or the desire to innovate. And I can totally understand that because if you're living in your parents' basement, getting everything for free, they pay for your phone and your internet and everything you want. If you're spoiled, then you're really not going to have a reason to go out and do anything. I can get that, and I've seen it. It happens to plenty of people. It happens, to youngsters, I think, growing up in youngsters. I'm old, whatever. It happens to kids growing up in situations where their parents have a lot of money or their parents just spoil them. Usually at least one of those two, if not both. Usually if the parents don't have a lot of money, it's much harder for them to spoil the child. So that's why this collects up there. It's not like this is, higher class people are all spoiled brats. Not what I'm trying to say, it's just, it's hard to spoil a kid when you don't have the money to do it. So, the people that would spoil a kid, if it's a 50-50 split down the middle of every socioeconomic class, you're going to see that come out in more high-class individuals, and I mean higher economic status, higher wealth. You're going to see it come out in the wealthier individuals more than the poor individuals, because the wealthier individuals can actually exhibit that trait. So, and I feel like that's why there's this perception of spoiled rich brats, because you don't really see spoiled poor brats because they won't be spoiled. They can't be. There's no money there for them to be spoiled on. So, anyway, there definitely are spoiled poor kids, but that's neither here nor there. I'm trying to make a point. There definitely are spoiled poor kids, but that's really, it's much rarer. It's not the kind of thing you see every day. Although some parents, especially lower income parents, really do go out of the way to make sure that their kid has everything they need, everything they could want at least, or at least feels like they have everything that they want. And I really commend parents that can do that. Not spoiler-wise. Yeah, spoiler-wise. Not in terms of, spoiling the kid, but in terms of giving a kid, even in a poor upbringing, a comfortable lifestyle. Or, just a lifestyle in general, letting the kid have a life, letting the kid not know how close you might be to trouble unless they really need to know. And parents will do that for their kids. They will, and they do. Anyway, back to the discussion of communism. Yeah, communism is problematic because it puts the power to control many in the hands of few. And that's why it goes so nicely with dictatorships, because that's what dictatorships do too. You know, if you have the same group of people controlling both all the money and the jobs, and also the government and the military, then you basically don't have anything to do. There's no way you can earn your keep on your own. There's no way you can get food on your own unless you're going to grow it yourself. And there's no way you can survive on your own or have basic utilities without just, you know, without paying up to this group of people that controls literally everything. And that's why it's a problem. That's why, you know, that's why there is a problem. Like I was saying, if we could replace that group of people with infallible robots that just wanted the best for humanity, then it would be glorious. I have very little doubt. It would be wonderful. It would be a new world, a brave new world, if you will. That isn't really a Huxley thing, but I'm trying to say that, you know, I think in the not-so-distant future we will begin to see a, you know, I'm not sure if or when we're ever going to reach like a post-scarcity society, but we are going to be getting to a point in the not-so-distant future where it's going to be like, oh, well, where are all the jobs? Like, and already we're having that, but it's like, it's going to be really where are all the jobs? It's going to be, where are any of the jobs? Where are any jobs? Unless you're, you know, a designer, an inventor, you know, in the STEM fields or doing something that a robot can't do, which that field is getting smaller and smaller. Think about how many people drive Uber or taxis for a living. And when we have self-driving cars, all those jobs are going to disappear. Hell, screw those two things. How about truckers? How about people that drive trucks for a living? There are unbelievable amounts of people that drive trucks for a living. Or, you know, what's another one? How about, you know, engineers, train drivers? They're not going to be able to make a living either. They're going to be supplanted by robots. And, you know, it's like driving is the next big step for robots. They can already do a lot of things. They can do some things, you know, they have difficulty with some things, usually particularly dexterous things, where you have to grip or hold or whatever, or ones where you really have to critical think about something. But robots are getting, you know, AI is getting smarter by the, you know, by the decade, by the year, by the day. And robots are getting better at things by the day. You know, there are thousands of people working on this kind of stuff around the globe because they think they can get rich off it too. And they're not necessarily wrong. If you're the first person to make an infallible self-driving car, or not even infallible, just less fallible than a human driver, you're gonna go places. You're gonna go places. And by go places, I mean go home and count your money for the rest of your life. So, yeah, that's a huge field that just hasn't been exploited totally yet. And yeah, I'm sure in the future we'll find other fields to exploit, but I doubt that, you know, I have my doubts that in the future jobs for humans will catch up to number of humans. Although, number of humans may drop. We have a lot of places, as you get into more civilized countries, you tend to see birth rates drop. So, as the world becomes more civilized globally, we'll have less babies. You know, fewer babies, fewer people overall. So maybe it'll balance itself out. It probably will eventually. But the point is, we're going to have a lot of people without jobs. Without jobs and without the opportunity to get them, without a way to train and get, you know, skills that they need to have these jobs because either they're just out of reach or the fields are way too competitive. So, you know, it's going to be a question of what do we do? And the only answer I can think of right now, and of course it's the easy answer because it's been the one that's been introduced to me and it's the one that's on my mind, is just to sort of move to a society, a post-scarcity society, you know, at least that kind of model where we're all just given something to live on, and if you want to work and if you want to make more, you can do that. You know, it's not exactly post-scarcity, but it's a lot more socialist than what we have now. It's not, you know, fully automated luxury gay space communism, but it's in that direction. But the reason I really brought this up was not to talk about communism. It was to talk about capitalism. And to talk about government regulation and capitalism. And a lot of people talk about how great laissez-faire is, and how, the market has these controls where it will revert to a situation, or it will balance at a situation that is a good fit for consumers and companies alike. And that's not untrue. In a basic economic model, that is exactly what will happen. You can learn that in a basic econ class, which I didn't take that much econ, but I took some. And you can learn that, and you will understand that, hey, okay, we've got a system where if nobody touches anything, it'll figure itself out. And that means, no tariffs, no regulations, none of that sort of thing. Now, there comes an issue, sort of like communism, there comes an issue in implementing this into real life, and the thing standing in the way of making it a perfect system is people, once again. I hate people, they're the worst. Oh wait, I thought I was talking about not hating people in this. But just like communism, socialism very easily puts the power in the hands of a group that control the economic system. Capitalism can do the same thing if left unchecked, because, and you can see this, you can go back in history and see this kind of thing happen. In turn of the century, 1900s, we had a lot of huge companies owning whole towns where they would control the price of goods at the store, and that was the only place you could buy things because you were paid in company credit. However, you were never paid enough to actually make ends meet, so you would go into debt, and you would fall into debt, and you'd end up in debt forever, and you'd never leave the company town. There's a Johnny Cash song about this. And so the sort of implication there is there has to be a check and a balance that goes along with regular old free market capitalism. It can't be that free because people will learn to horizontally integrate. And that's, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's certainly not a bad thing for the people that have the money, just like, just like in communism and socialism, the people that have the power will have a great time keeping themselves powerful. But without people to come along and tear that apart, whether that be by revolution in the case of communism, or in the case of capitalism with just laws, if you're in a democratic society where you can vote on that kind of thing, that's the other thing. Those two things sort of go together because democracy and capitalism both put more power in the hand of the individual and not in the hand of an entity. And that is, as we have seen, better in the current era because that entity is going to be run by people, and those people are going to want power and money. And it is really just, I would really just assume that it's a combination of two things. One, that power corrupts, which I'm sure we all know anyway. And two, that the promise of those positions, especially in a democratically elected, in a society where there is democracy, in a society where you can move up, sort of under your own power by getting votes or getting into a company or getting a degree or whatever, it's going to draw in people that want the power and the money. And so then you're left with a ruling class of people who either got there to fix the system and got corrupted, or got there because they were corrupt and they wanted that. They wanted a position of power. So, and that doesn't mean that everybody's bad. In no system is everybody bad, I would wager. But it does mean that there's a high propensity for problems if you don't have some sort of checks and balances. And that's what's great about a democratic society, is if somebody in power you think is off their nut, or is super corrupt or whatever, you can vote them out. You can get rid of them and replace them with somebody who is hopefully better. Now, again, there becomes a problem with horizontal integration where if there is effectively one party, which I'm not sure this has happened in any system that we know of necessarily, or at least not a heavily publicized democratic one, where one party controls everything, then you really don't have a choice. But when there is a choice between two things that you think are terrible, you at least choose the one that you think is less terrible. I think this past election was, that's a great analogy, and I think that really happens for a lot of people every election. There have been very few presidents, I think, in recent memory that have really ignited the populace, at least a large portion of the populace, mostly because politics is so divisive these days, because of, which means if somebody's from the other party, that means they're evil. Which is silly. It's politics, not sports. It affects all of us. It doesn't just matter if your team wins. And so that's why it's best to look at everyone as an individual. It's, even if you don't agree with somebody's principles, it's better to pick somebody that you think has bad principles versus somebody that, is either principle-less, you can't figure out, you can't place them, or, may have some sort of ulterior motive or other agenda, or, something that is, otherwise enormously problematic to the safety and security of, the country, the people, whatever, what have you. But anyway, that's, and that's the thing, and so I started off on a talk about capitalism, and I ended up on a talk about democracy. Those two things are so closely linked, they're so closely intertwined, and they're so similar with the opportunities that they provide for an individual. And I think that's what makes those systems, in our current day and age, I think they're the most viable. That may change in the not-so-distant future. I don't know about democracy, but that may change in the not-so-distant future. But I'm not sure what would ever supplant democracy, and I've talked about already the shortfalls, the failings of a centralized economic system in capitalism, socialism, communism, socialism, what have you. Okay, so are we going to need this tile? If we go in here, yeah, we do. Anyway. Alright, I'm done with politics for a little while. I'll talk about something else. Do we have another? Oh. For the retaining wall, I would recommend using tie retaining wall with a dirt road or some sort of to fill in the top. Let's see if I have that. That's what Mason said, by the way. No, I don't have it. Okay, so he said he wasn't sure if it was on the DLS or not. I will have to look into it later. I like this retaining wall that we've got going on here. Okay, so we have to get out this way. So the thing is, we need to get to where? Over here. I should probably be building in this direction now. Look how close we are. We've almost closed this gap. And I can't zoom out and see the thing for whatever reason. What was it? Winston Churchill that said, a democratic government is the worst system except for all the others. So, it's definitely some truth in that statement. Nothing is without flaw. I think, sorry, I said I'd get off the politics, but I keep coming up with things. It's one of my favorite subjects to sort of look at both sides of. Because it's so, it's rare that you can have a sort of dual-sided, a conversation with somebody where you really are getting into the nitty-gritty these days, and it's because we're being torn apart. Let's be honest. There's not a lot of compassion taught on the news lately. Depending on where you look, some places less than others. And the fact of the matter is, it's not something that's just happening. I would think. And this was the opinion of the other person that I was discussing this with as well. So it's almost funny to see, to be looking at one side of a conflict and then be talking to somebody on the other side, so to speak, and still, approach the same realization from different angles and have, different thoughts about it as to who and as to why. There's an issue right now in the world. And that issue is that we're being driven apart. And that, the question is what's driving it. I don't think there's some sort of black hand guiding the whole thing. There's not, some sort of secret organization that's trying to tear us apart. But people are definitely realizing that by demonizing and dehumanizing their enemies, or their opponents, or their adversaries, in whatever, whether that be politics, war, of course, it's been done that way for pretty much as long as warfare has been a thing, that they can get better results. That they can more easily convince people that theirs is the right, if they convince them that, the other, there is no possible way that can be right. Because they are wrong, and they are, evil and stupid, or whatever. And so, yeah, that's, that's the way it is. And it's unfortunate. But the question is, why? And the answer, I think, is the fact that, like I just said, people get better results out of it. You're going to drive people to the polls more out of fear than out of hope. And it's tough to drive hope. It's easy to drive fear. It's easy to tap into somebody's fears. And that's why terrorists are a thing. There are no such thing as hope-arists. It's if you want to get in someone's head, if you want to make them think a certain way, the easiest way to do it is to make them scared. So that's why I don't want to get scared. I want people to calm down and not be scared. I want people to think about it, think rationally before they make a decision. Think about all things and try not to root yourself in the things that you think you know. And I've said a lot of things in the past, 30 minutes to an hour in my ramblings about capitalism, socialism, democracy, dictatorships, that, I feel are true but could be wrong in many situations, in any situation. It's the kind of thing where if presented with a clear knowledge that, hey, I effed up, I'm stupid, and I know that there are plenty of things that I just talked about that I don't really have a lot of information on. I really don't. I'm flying by the seat of my pants here. Normally I don't do that, especially not in a conversation with another person, because I don't want to be telling lies. Even if I don't mean it, even if I don't mean to be telling lies, even if there's something that I think but I haven't really had the time to research or look up, I just won't say it. And so it leads to a lot of dead ends, and it leads to a lot of, in some ways, lack of resolution, because you don't end up getting to finish that conversation because you go, well, I don't know. I don't know why this is. But, anyway, that's the way it is. Let's fill this in with stuff from this side. Because it's easier to go up than it is to go down. And that's a very white knight thing of me to say, too. And I understand that. I don't want to come off as super pretentious, like, well, I don't ever do things like that. I do. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes like that. And I sometimes, let my ego go first, or I speak about something that I don't, I'm probably not qualified to speak about. And it's regrettable. It's the kind of thing where, no matter how right you feel when you say something, you still might not be right. And, yeah. That's why it's important to take a step back and think. Which is hard to do. It's not easy. It's not something that you can just do. It's not something that you can, it's not something that people are born with, and it's not something that most people, necessarily ever do. Few people are that collected that they can really, when they're upset, really stop and think about what they're saying. And so, and that's just, and that's what drives it. And that's why it's so effective. Because if you get people upset, then they won't think. If you get people upset, then they'll just be upset. And so, yeah. That's my revelations for the day. I should move on to something else. Because I've gone off on one of these tangents, and I'm preaching. And I know not everyone likes that. But if you agree with me, if you don't agree with me, I will read every comment, and I will respond to every comment, and I will reply as best I can to the best of my knowledge, and probably off the cuff too. It's, you know, I would love to have, and I love to have discussions. And maybe I've said this before, but I try to avoid having discussions with people that tend to share the same beliefs as I do. And usually when somebody comes to me and talks about a certain belief that they have, I try to provide the other side. Even if I don't like it, even if I don't believe in it, because I'm playing devil's advocate. And that might not always be the best, and you don't want to be a dick, and you don't want to be a douche. You want to be like, well, actually, but, you know, it's important to provide people with that other side, no matter what, and I think we should always be provided with it. I think we have a right to listen to both sides of an issue, and I hesitate when I say that, and the reason is there are some issues that maybe don't deserve it, like flat Earth, and I brought that up once. Yes, I was joking. I do not think the Earth is flat. The Earth is in fact round. It has been observed to be round. You know, that sort of thing. These very clearly, like, yes, there's not only a scientific consensus on this, but you can see it yourself. You know, it's very clear that things are a certain way, and it doesn't make sense necessarily that a factually wrong side should be given as much airtime as a factually right side. And now then you get into a debate about, okay, well, what are the facts? And statistics can be twisted and bent. It's best to know statistics so you can know if something sounds fishy, if something looks fishy. You know, you can play with statistics until the day you die, and you can make them say whatever you want. You know, it's all about just the data you portray and the data you omit. And that's why it's tough to figure out what the facts are sometimes, what the real facts are sometimes. Now, as for political issues, there might not necessarily be hard facts. There might just be a lot of opinion. There might be a lot of evidence, here or there, but there might just be a lot of opinion as to what that evidence means. Which is why, like I said, with those things, everyone deserves to see both sides of the issue. Anyway, so we're getting to a golden spike moment here. We're still pretty far away, but the mountains are coming along pretty quickly, if I say so, or if I do say so myself. It's like, am I gonna open this up to a larger plane here? Am I gonna just make taller mountains? What am I gonna do with this area? It's so easy to just call it a day and leave it relatively flat and just have the rail line, you know, sort of do whatever it needs to do. Which is probably, like, drive up to about here and then hole through. Which is probably what I'm going to do. Because I can't go this way, there isn't enough room, and I can't go this way, there also isn't enough room. So, yeah. We're really kind of between... Like, I knew there was going to be a tunnel. Just wasn't quite sure where. Either way, we can definitely 5-meter grid this tile and build some track. Like it says this cannot be undone, but it totally can be undone because it can be undone. We could probably keep this a little bit lower. We don't have to make this be so high. We're pretty high above the water right now. Whoops, I actually wanted -1, not 0.1. Alright, what does this look like anyway? So we need to look at what we're doing here in terms of building track. This probably could use a retaining wall. Or at least, well, we have that embankment. Okay, so we're gonna get rid of this now. And I really am just trying to get over there, but this tile's done. This tile's done. So let's 5-meter grid this tile. Because the corner of the tile is here, yeah, that's in the house. We're probably not going to be playing with this as much, or that much anymore, so let's go over here, let's 5-meter grid this tile. Yes. So we're going to go this way. And this area should be relatively flat. It's mostly in like a... I hesitate to call it a floodplain, but that's sort of what it is. If the lake were to get any higher, it would flood. And it is flat like a plain. So I guess you could call it that. Not sure what the actual dictionary definition of a floodplain is. I'm not the biomes guy. Ryan the biomes guy. Alright, this actually is a nice spot for a real Big Wye. Although, maybe we'll say that the main line may have originally gone that way. And then crossed, like, up here. Which means that the Y would be somewhere else. Not necessarily on that main line. Although, well, let's think. So, if they were to have built this main line originally, this one that I'm working on right now, that's going to lead to the ice house. Oh, there's a spline point right here. I was wondering where a spline point was. Okay, and that switch is... oh, it's too wobbly, not that it's too long. Okay, so here's the thing. I wanted to actually pull it much closer to this, and then swing it that way. So let's just do that while we're here, before we really get into it. I wanted to pull it this way so that we could have a Y over here. Okay, and this gradient is 0.28. Okay, well that doesn't look great, that right there. That looks better, but it's still kind of tight. You know, we have all this room. But the thing is, so if they built this line first, then they would have cared more about getting along... Okay, let's build the old line first. They would have cared much more about getting along the edge of the lake than getting in that direction. So, we have this up to here. We have that to there. Yeah, we need to get to, like, here, I guess would be where, like, it would just curve off that way. And we'll build that embankment just to make it look right. And they would be trying for some wider turns, as wide as they could really get without breaking the bank. Yeah, this is some real straight curve straight action. Okay, so this to about there, that to there. Okay, we're not exactly hugging the edge of the lake because we don't need to. Alright, so I like this alignment. We'll build off of it. Okay, and these are pretty low gradients. Here's a 1.9. But let's see, we can probably fix that. Oh. What if I just make it 0? A negative 0.01. Oh. Okay, so this is because we were skirting by the lake and we wanted more, like, wiggle room, I guess you could say, probably. This turn feels kind of weird. What if I moved it to there? And then also raised it a little. Yeah, it looks more. That seems better. There. Okay, let's see. 0.97, negative 0.5. Not exactly mountain railroading, but there we have it. The VMR main line, after countless twists and turns, has finally made it to a point where it can be pretty flat. Yeah, this is straight curve, straight curve, straight curve, straight. That is some spot-on civil engineering right there. And so we will build the Y right here. Whoops, get rid of this. It's still going to be big. Still pretty big. And that's, obviously not how it's going to look, but like, how big of a Y do we need? And then maybe I can put a cutoff track through here, because this is the new main line after all. Yeah, this isn't the tightest curve we've had, that's for sure. Okay. We can do this. Is this curve way too frickin' tight? Maybe. Will that stop me? Nope. That's actually not that tight. It's just... Okay, let's test it with the stupid... K1 and train. Where is it? Where is it? JK. No. Is it CN? Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty damn tight. I'd like to make that wider. Honestly, Honestly, what I should be doing here is building a set of tracks. So we have this the way it is right now. What I should be doing, because this is downhill pretty much from here. It's very slight uphill and then downhill. Actually, what is the uphill on this? Not much. Okay. I mean, it's 8%. It's pretty hefty. Oh wait, no, that's down in that direction. Oh yeah, then I definitely want that. And I'm gonna try to keep the turn that goes that way pretty flat. So what I'm gonna do is, oh, I only have 20 minutes left. I'm gonna split this here. I'm going to move this slightly. I'm going to move this slightly. I'm going to build a very short sort of stub-looking track. Not stub, but, you know, a merge track. A siding. A switch. Right there. Okay. Now it's 1.18. Let me make things a little bit better for this. There we go. Just keep it under 1. Okay, so the thing is, so this is the old main line now, right? So this is going off this way. And we have the new main line, which I'm about to build. Which goes through here, and eventually attaches to, like, over here somewhere. Alright, so let's see, we got a straight line here, which is probably something that we just keep. Oh, that's why that was being weird. It's probably something that we just keep. Honestly, let me delete, can't do that. Let me delete this spline point. I guess not by actually deleting the spline point, but by doing that, sure. And now we have a much wider turn that's going to have a hell of a cut in it. But it means that you can go around at track speed if you need to. Oh, how deep is this cut going to be? Really not bad. Okay. Of course. Nothing's ever simple, is it? Damn it. Turn this down. As long as I can see, you know, most of the ties and all the rails, it's fine. Alright, so this is the new main line that goes this way. And this is a new track. And it's going to go this way, and it's going to go into a tunnel that goes this way. But in the meantime, what I need to build is the other track of the Y, the third and final leg of the Y, which I guess, let's see, where is the edge of the thing? It's right there. So right here is where I'm going to need to put a buffer because I can't break my rule. Right there. And as we've learned, we can't make engines pull that close up to it. So we're going to do things sort of rough here. Let's see, what do I need out here? Just like a standpipe probably, and that's really it. Huh? Straighten that. Alright, like so, like so. Like so. I don't even really care what the gradients are on this section. It just needs to work. It's just a ghetto Y in a place where there probably wouldn't, you know, otherwise wouldn't need to be one. Probably not even a little.
Solar flares arrive. Buildings collapse. Only a few will survive.
Put this here. Nope.
Will no longer be there. Water is gone. A new era has begun. Prepare yourself.
Wait, what is the height of this? That's what I need.
For the apocalypse.
And I could have even left this like at the regular spline points. But there we have a crazily misshaped Y, which is going to have a spur that comes off of it and runs over here to an ice house.
For the apocalypse.
Let's see. I need an ice house. Ice house. It's Ben Dorsey. He's dead. Okay, so I'd assume this doesn't work. But, you know.
The heat is scorching. Forests burned up. The sky colors red.
This is an ice plant.
Volcanoes erupt.
No.
The world as we know it will no longer be there.
Ice house.
Water is gone.
Glacier office.
A new era has begun. Prepare yourself for the apocalypse.
Oh, we're getting in the office because office has ice at the end of it. Nailed it.
For the apocalypse.
Hinton Ice House. Oh, this is to put ice into the reefers. No, we just want to pick up ice. Okay, we need a wharf or whatever. I don't remember what it's called, but the wooden thing. Wharf, no road. There we go. This is what I want. Okay. So we have a wharf now. We have a little house to put on it. Oh. That's an issue. Little house to put on it. We'll turn the house this way so that it doesn't have a door facing the very edge of the pier. We'll raise it another 1 unit so that its door is like at a decent height. And then we're gonna need to get some track down onto this dock, which we will probably turn into a multiple industry at some point. This is actually, I don't need to turn it into a multiple industry because it's summertime. It's like, uh-oh, can't answer that right now. It's like June 24th or something on the route. Figured that out. The date's completely arbitrary, but it's a date. It's a date. So okay. Honestly, I probably should be using rails only and not this, or bridge track. Let's see. Nope, can't answer that either. Everyone's calling me at once. And the phone's probably gonna go off too. There it goes. Nope. Guess not. Bridge track. Not 2. Oh, 2T? What? Oh, bridge track 2 track. No. I want actual bridge track. Bridge track. Bridge track. Ah, there we go. That's good. BDW stuff. Always nice. So pretty much always. Totally can't see that gravel that keeps flashing in and out. Okay. Well, anyway, there we go. We have that. Now I need track to connect it to the main track, which is going to be regular track. Look over there. Drain that. Drain this. Don't drain that. Actually, it doesn't look half bad the way it is, but that is too much of a grade to get down there, like way too much of a grade. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a splint hook here, and then we're going to make this like maybe all 2% or something. 2%. Will that do it? Probably not. Yeah, it's 2, 2, and then 3.6. And then this looks really bad, and that doesn't work. Oh, come on. Give me something. Give me something. Or we'll just, okay. There's a really simple solution for this. Because you don't have to come all up by all that much. We're not missing all that much. What we just need to do is we need to come down here, and we just need to, sort of do this. Whoops. Okay, we already have the 2% set up. Oh, whoops, this isn't straightened. That's kind of important. Missed that. Pretty sure that's all the same, or mostly the same length. I don't mind this 2% grade. It's a little bit steep, but it's not the end of the world. and this turn is a little bit tight, but it's a thingy, so it doesn't matter. It's just an industry that we're not going to be using. And that may be the first industry that I have built on this map that I have officially said, yeah, I'm going to build it, but there's going to be no use for it. So, take from that what you will, I guess. .90, and this track, yeah. Okay, so now we have a track down to the ice house. We even have a bit of a lead to shunt stuff in and out, and I'm also going to add a, what am I going to do? Should I add a runaround somewhere? I don't know where I would. Probably over here. I need to add a siding. And add it right here. Oh, we've only had 5 minutes left. I've done so much this episode. I feel so good about myself. We're gonna need to add some little operation-y details over there. That sort of goodness. And I definitely do need a runaround, but it doesn't need to be long. It can be pretty short. Although it doesn't have to be long, and it can just be a stub at one end. So, in true Tolbrand fashion, I'll be building a runaround, but it'll be right here, where this is the only room you have to actually switch cars out. And figure it was part of double track for the old main line, but now it isn't double track, and it would never need to be. So the right-of-way has sort of been repurposed, the tracks have been realigned a little bit, and this is what we have. We have a janky runaround with a short dead end. I mean, I suppose we could encroach a little bit there. It wouldn't do us any harm, because it's just a dead end that, like I said, nobody's going to be using. But I think I'll just leave it alone. And I do need to add a water column. That is the other thing that I do probably need. So I'll add that right here, I guess. Well, it should be a water tower, but $1880 water tower. Is this... Okay, this is what I need to start doing, too. I need to start actually looking this stuff up to see if I can use it. 1880 water tower is modified. Is there a version on the DLS? List asset versions. There is a version available for download, so I'm okay to use it. This would have been outdated even by the time the VMware put it here, but that doesn't matter. Okay, so clear that so that we just get all the stuff back. We need a spline point there, we need to break it. Which end is this? That end goes there, this end goes at the other end. And so we have a water tower. Alright, sweet. Let's throw down a couple of buffers, shall we? Where are our pick lists? T-side. Bumper US Dark Rusty, or no, this. Haze bumper. Is there a rusty one? Light rusty, yes. Looks so much better, actually. The black one is just a little bit too black. It looks like, you know, freshly painted. Nothing on the railroad would look like that, not ever. I don't want to place it on the, you know, I don't want to make it part of the wharf. Is there another stub that I'm missing? No, I've got that one, that one, and that one. Okay, so we've got 1 more minute. Let's run the episode a little bit long and build this right-of-way. It doesn't have to be good, it doesn't even have to make sense, but we're building it. But we've got to here, and that's what matters. Alright, let's just change this, make sure all the gradients are sane within the VMR's limits. And it'd be relatively flat too, huh? In fact, I'm going to give it, just for funsies, I'm going to give it a 0.2% upgrade. And then we're going to move the spline points to where they would belong. Which actually, it looks like we did a pretty good job of giving it that, as is. Let's see, we can move that to there, move that to there. We can keep this a little bit more nestled inside the hill. Alright. Alright, we're still... Looks like a relatively easy route for the VMR, all things considered. Alright, we adjusted spline points again, so let's refresh the grade. We're already over time a little bit, but I'm okay with that today. We had a couple of short episodes in the not-so-distant past, so... Okay, so we're not going to leave that track there, but I'm leaving it there for now to remind me that that's railroad grade. The other thing I do need to do, though, is I need to lower this. At least to below the level of the track. Because then we'd just have water on the track, and that's no good. And we could have suffered a bit of a washout here, so that's fine that it looks a little bit on the rough side. Fill that in. Let's fill Swift here. Flexed. Alright, we now have a Y up top of the VMR. This is the dream of a number of people that have been playing around with this route for quite some time. This is now like an endpoint. I think I'm going to take this and throw it in a CDP. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week. Trainman out.